The World Economic Forum is taking place in Davos right now, and policymakers and leaders from around the world are gathering. Hot topic there is going to be cryptocurrency and the financial revolution that is coming out of the crypto and blockchain industry. With that in mind, Coinbase has just released a new white paper directed at policymakers and designed specifically to get them thinking about the larger impacts that blockchain and crypto are going to have on all of society and the economy. With me now, I've got one of the authors of this paper, Scott Bauguess from Coinbase Institute and the public policy team there.
Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here.
So let's just start with a definition. This paper talks about freedom and permissionless networks, but what does it specifically mean to be a permissionless network?
A permissionless network is simply one that's an open system that anyone can join and use without special permissions. We have a lot of examples of how this exists, examples of this today. It's similar to TCP/IP or SMTP. These are the protocols that govern how computers talk to each other over the internet. It governs how email applications like Gmail and Outlook can send emails to each other over the internet with full interoperability. And now what we're doing is we're moving not just to information transfer, we're moving to value transfer over the internet. And that's being done with blockchain protocols like we all know today, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and also many others.
Now, there are public blockchains and there are private blockchains. Why are permissionless or public blockchains specifically so important? Like, what is the sort of secret sauce that they bring to the table that makes them more valuable than the other choices?
With permissionless systems, we can still have permission systems like we have today. You can build a permission system on top of a permissionless system. You can't do it in reverse. You can't build a permissionless system on top of a permission system. And permission systems are and still will be important. These closed networks can offer speed, efficiency. They can do specific tasks and applications extremely well. They're not going to go away, but they're not inclusive because the owners of these networks can dictate the terms of their participation. And there are many examples of this. So we think of banks and broker-dealer networks. They're very important to the financial ecosystem that exists today, but they restrict participation. Not everybody has a bank account. Not everybody has access to a broker-dealer. I'm an iPhone user. I love my iPhone. I spend way too much time on it. My screen time violations are flagged every single day. I love Apple, but Apple dictates the terms of those apps. There are many social media platforms that we all use today that are integral to our societal fabric, but you can be kicked off those platforms and you don't own your data. These are all critical and important services, but there can be so much more with a permissionless architecture as the basis for our future financial market.
So how big is the impact that we're talking about? Does this actually move the needle on kind of the overall size of the economy? Like, why should policymakers care about this?
It's massive. It goes far beyond just the crypto ecosystem that we see today. Today, if you add up all the crypto tokens that are out there, it might be $2 or $3 trillion worth of value, but there's over $100 trillion of securities that are waiting to be tokenized today. You can tokenize real world assets. You can tokenize your car title. You can tokenize the title to your home. You can tokenize a bottle of wine. You can tokenize intellectual property. There's no limit to what you can tokenize. And the only way the future financial system is going to work is if you do that on a permissionless ecosystem. It's not going to be the next Apple, the next Meta, or the next Google that's going to facilitate this. It's going to be an open architecture like what the internet today offers.
So what is it that you kind of are aiming for from policymakers? Because we've got literally like hundreds of blockchains. Ethereum's got like 50 L2s. There's hundreds of DeFi services. What is it that you want that the market is not already delivering today? Or what is your goal in delivering this message to policymakers?
You're right. The market is already delivering this promise today, and all we're asking for is to have policymakers let 1,000 flowers bloom. We are still in the very early innings, the very early stages of innovation, and what we don't want to see is a ban or prohibition of this type of innovation. We don't want to see policymakers picking winners and losers. We don't want policymakers to assume that existing practices are the best practices. What policymakers should be doing is focusing on outcomes and letting the market reach those outcomes, knowing that technology is going to deliver different practices to get to that point. Governments help maintain the open internet protocols that we use every day today, and that's extremely important. Back in the 1990s, that we didn't end up with closed architectures. And this is going to be very important going forward in that they need to advocate for base layer neutrality. The underlying technology that's going to operate these permissionless systems need to do so impartially without favoring specific participants or without prioritizing one type of activity over another. Just like we have net neutrality with the internet, there's a permissionless imperative where policymakers need to also let these open architectures flourish today.
Now, your one thing that's kind of surprised me about this paper was you're calling for kind of an equal playing field with banks, and this really means letting the banks into the crypto and blockchain space in a way that they're not able to today. That seems like you're advocating for your competition. So, what's the story behind that?
Well, it's pretty simple. At Coinbase, we want to bring 1 billion users on chain. We know we can't do it alone. We have argued for open systems and a level playing field since the beginning of the company. We want to compete on our products and services. We don't want to build regulatory moats, or we don't want to build regulatory moats or other types of frictions in the system. And we think open permissionless systems will prevail. They can prevail if policymakers let that happen. Then the pie is going to grow much faster than our slice of it. The potential is really unlimited. In that respect, we're still being very self-interested.
For people who want to read the whole paper, where should they find it?
If you Google Coinbase Institute or go to the Coinbase website and search there, you'll be able to find this paper.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining me, Scott.